Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is part of my series where I talk about my love for Life is Strange 2. I've gone over episodes 1 and 2 so far, so if you haven't seen them, make sure you go and check them out. But we're about to dive into episode 3. Episode 3 is my personal favorite of the 5 episodes for Life is Strange 2 for a multitude of reasons, and so let's just dive right in. So episode 3 starts out with a flashback, actually, which is, I think, the first flashback we get in the series. We get a couple of, maybe only one flashback, but we get a couple of scenes that are like outside of the main thrust of the narrative, if you will. And that was kind of a good, it was a good break because you've been in present day with Shawn and Daniel for quite some time now. And so then to go back to where it all began, I feel like it plays two parts. It helps you kind of reassure that once upon a time these two were just normal brothers with normal brother problems. Most of all, I think it really helps to show the passage of time. So you go back, you start this scene back in time with the brothers still at their home, dad's still alive. Everything is good, but not good because, it's like we have normal people problems now. But at any rate, you learn about the watch that Shawn gave to Daniel, and then you wake up in present day. The artist did such a good job of making these characters look aged. That is another thing that really helps this journey feel very real. And I think one thing that really makes it stand out in this particular episode is that you start out in the past, and then you zoom to the present, and you're like, wow, Shawn looks significantly older now than he did when this journey started. And in that flashback, it was even a couple months before the start of their journey. So that certainly helped. Like I said, the artist did a great job of aging these characters. Daniel looks aged as well. And I can remember when I was doing my first playthrough of this, I was also doing a playthrough with my brother at the same time. So I was on chapter 4 with my playthrough, and my brother was on chapter 2. And so I can remember seeing the characters in episode 4 and then going back to seeing them in episode 2 and being like, wow, they look significantly older. They look more mature. And so that's kind of your first impression. Boom, you're introduced to episode 3, present day, and your characters are aged. They're aging. You see the passage of time, and that's huge for a story like this. And it's a journey, and you really feel like you're living with these characters because you're seeing them change right before your eyes. So you wake up, or Shawn wakes up, and you're introduced to this camp. Cassidy is there, who is the same girl from the tree market. So you're just kind of wandering around this camp trying to get to know people as the player. You're trying to figure out where the heck you are, what you're doing, all that good stuff. One thing that I like to note is the journal. I love the journal function because you can check his journal and kind of bridge the passage of time between episodes. So if you're someone who's really into it like I am, then the first thing I do whenever I start an episode is I flip open that journal, figure out what I missed. It's like, okay, let's do this. So you're going around the camp, you're kind of meeting everybody. You can only meet so many people in this early segment. You get to meet Penny and Jacob. I feel like this is the only time you get to talk to Jacob before episode 4. So if you talk to him, that's an important piece of information that you'll get that'll help you kind of navigate episode 4. So you're moving through, you figure out, first instinct when I woke up anyway is where's Daniel? And I'm sure everybody else is thinking that, where's Daniel? So you go down to the lake, and Daniel is doing some target practice with knife throwing with Finn, who is the other character from the tree market. And obviously Daniel's using his powers. He's faking these knife throws, and it creates a bit of tension between the brothers. What you get to see there is, I believe, the second time Daniel uses his powers against Shawn. So Daniel's temper at this point is becoming worrisome because the brothers get in an argument. He uses his telekinesis to throw Shawn to the ground. Now, the first time he uses his powers against Shawn, you can argue is probably unintentional because that's when he very first discovers he has them in that hotel room, and depending on your word choice, he'll like throw stuff at you. So this is technically the second time he's attacked Shawn, but the important thing to note is that he immediately feels bad for it. So it's like, okay, so Daniel attacks Shawn with his powers, but he feels bad for what he did. So you can see there that there's still some good humanity there, and he's just losing his temper like a normal child would. So from there, you get to hop on the truck and you go to the weed farm that they're working on, and you get to kind of be introduced to more of the characters, and you get to see the people that they work for and the kind of work that they're doing. And I mean, I will say there's not much to all of this in the fact, but there is something to be said about the actual trimming sequence when you're doing the little mini game and you're trimming the buds, and then there's conversations going on. I feel like that was a very well made, yeah, from a game standpoint, a very well made sequence, because you kind of feel like you're actually at work. You're doing this mundane task, you're doing your little button commands, LTRT, and then on the side you got this conversation that you're trying to listen to, and then they prompt you to join in the conversation yourself, and then you're getting distracted from your mini games. So that was a pretty good sequence, you know. As I feel like it was really well made and kind of captures it in a game sense the mundane essence of working and that kind of thing. So they get back to the camp, and this for me is where episode 3 really shines, because you have a pretty large cast, much larger than you've had in the other 2 episodes, and you get a chance to really meet all of the cast members. So first you meet Jacob, who, if you talk to him in that very first chapter, and then when you get off the truck, you have the opportunity to talk to Finn, and if you dig in deep enough, you'll figure out that Finn and his brothers used to smuggle cars for his dad, and then when his dad got caught, he ratted out his sons, and so Finn and his brothers all went to jail. Pretty crappy story. And I feel like that's where chapter 3 really shines, is all the characters in here, they all have their own story. So you get back to camp, and you have the opportunity to draw a picture of Cassidy, and then you learn her backstory. She comes from Texas, if you can't tell by that very country drawl. Her parents basically forbid her from dating someone who wasn't white. She doesn't specify what race, but at any rate, she took off and left after that. She's like, nah, I'm not going to be part of that. So that's her story. And then you learn Hannah's story. If you go and sit down and help her with her potato peeling chores, you'll learn that her mom was an alcoholic and a really good artist. And so Hannah would go out and buy art supplies, and then her mom would return the art supplies and buy alcohol. Just like I said, every character in this chapter had a story, and it all felt so genuine and so real. And that's another thing that really stands out to me in the whole series, but in this chapter in particular, is the dialogue. The dialogue between the characters and the voice acting and everything there, it feels so genuine and so real. And I think that's what helps kind of bring this out. And so a huge commendment on that one there. So after that, you're given the opportunity to help Daniel or to train him with his powers. And so you go out to the lake to train him with his powers, and he has that huge fit. I mean, it kind of starts when he blows up the tree. Like, the writers did a very good job of showing the escalation of his powers, like going from the hotel room to him trying to lift some rocks and stuff, to chapter 3 where he's blowing up trees and then he pulls an entire tree out from the ocean. They did a great job of showing the escalation of his powers, and that's kind of the first time you as the audience get to see like what he is capable of. Like, walking into this episode, I would have not thought that we could be pulling up like entire trees from oceans, and then he does it and I'm like, well, okay, so we've got some serious telekinesis going on here. After that, you've got the campfire party kind of thing where everybody kind of shares their saddest memory, and you as the player can share one of Shawn's sad memories. And this is where you get to learn Penny's story. And you get a very vague description of Jacob's story. Obviously, there's more to come there in chapter 4, but vague description of his story, and kind of get to hear the hopes and dreams of Finn, and just kind of enjoy a moment with these characters and the camaraderie between them. And then you go off to bed, and depending on the choice you make, you either stay up and get your hair cut, or you go to bed with Daniel and try and figure out, hey, what's going on? You're losing your temper. Your powers are extraordinary. And so what in the world is going on? That's kind of the end of there. You move into the montage with another great song. Like I said, the music in here is incredible. And from the montage, you get to the point where it's payday. Everybody's getting paid. Shawn goes in, and then Daniel sneaks in, creates this big O scene, which for me, I have kind of mixed feelings about. Like, honestly, from Meryl, I think the boss's name is Meryl. From Meryl's standpoint, like, I feel like he has given them ample opportunities. And, I mean, he is running an illegal pot farm, and he's employing, like, a 12-year-old. So, from Meryl's standpoint, I kind of feel for the guy, you know? I was like, yeah, you should probably kick them out. But then he takes it like a step too far, and he's like, Big Joe, teach him a lesson. I was like, I don't know that you need to have Big Joe beating up on this kid just because of what happened or whatever. And so then they're kicked out, and Daniel uses his power, so he has to reveal the power to all the people at that campsite. And then Finn concocts this big thing to try and kind of basically con Meryl out of the money because he's going to use Daniel's power to break into his safe. So you have the choice there to break into the safe or not to. I've never actually broken into the safe willingly, and so that's still an avenue of this story that I need to explore. But at any rate, you kind of hook up with Cassidy as you're going away. You get a tattoo, you go skinny dipping, and then you eventually will run into the fact that, oh, Finn and Daniel are gone. I wonder where they ran off to. And so that transitions into the truck scene with the sabotaging of the truck and all of that. And I feel like that is a part that very much so reminds you that you are playing a game. And I feel like it's a very important part to still have in these story-based games. A lot of these story-based games get so wrapped up in telling their story that they forget that the player is playing a game. So it's good to have these kind of segments where you're just kind of thrown in the environment and you gotta make it work. And so I think that was awesome too. Go around, explore, slash some tires, rig up that truck and get it out of there. And then you catch up with the brothers. And by this point, I mean, I was never a huge Finn fan, but once Finn proposed the robbery or the heist, if you will, I was way out of that camp like entirely. So by this point, I'm pissed at Finn. I'm like, yeah, F you, dude, you know. And so get there, and he's still trying to, we can do this. I'm like, nah, dude, I ain't having that. So, of course, Daniel has a fit. He blows open the door. Meryl finds them with a shotgun. And now you guys are being held at gunpoint. And I was given the choice to use Daniel's power and save them or not use Daniel's power. I opted not to use his power and got Finn killed. And it sounds terrible, but it was incredibly satisfying because I personally didn't much care for Finn. So Finn gets killed. Daniel explodes at that point, blows this whole pot farm, cabin, whatever you want to call it, just completely destroys the whole thing. Screen goes black, and it opens up to another amazing song choice. Opens up to this amazing song choice. The camera's panning around, showing you all the damage and destruction that was caused by Daniel's power. And you get to see all the people who were harmed during this explosion. I don't have too many criticisms of this story or how it's told, but I do have one particular criticism here. Myself included, and everyone I've played this game with, when they see this scene, it is presented as though these individuals are dead. And I believe that this story, or this scene in the story at least, would have a much bigger impact if that were the case. I think it should have been based upon Daniel's temper, the amount of force that he uses with his telekinesis. Like, if you have a really bad relationship with Daniel when walking into this and he explodes, I would have everyone, obviously you can't kill off Shawn, but I would have everyone else in there dead. That would be one hell of an impact for the player and for the story and for the characters to just be like, Daniel blew his top and literally killed everyone. And then, of course, you pan up to Shawn, and he's got glass in his eyes, so you know homeboy is in a bad way. But more importantly, Daniel is gone. So now you have the brothers are separated, which I think is an incredible dynamic. When they sold the game, they sold it by episode, so you got to see the episode covers before actually having played the game. And so I already knew that they were going to be separated because the episode 4 cover has Shawn by himself. So I think that was poor choice. The people who make these games are really bad with spoilers anyway. Like, they presented in the trailers that Daniel has telekinesis. It's even written on the back of the physical copy. But I feel like when I play it with people, the best mystery is the fact that you don't know for sure if he has powers. Like, if you're familiar with the Life is Strange franchise, then you know, okay, he's got powers. But I played it with my brother and my mother, who I had introduced into the franchise, and they had no idea. And that mystery, that wonderment, that was part of the magic of episode 1. So I feel like the creators really need to draw back on the spoiling, because they unintentionally spoil some things that could really add to the story. And this being one of them. I would have never have guessed walking into this, if had I not have seen the episode posters, that that the brothers were going to be separated. But separating the brothers makes for an excellent story. And now you have this aching wonder of where the heck did Daniel go, and how the heck are we going to find him? And that's what we'll cover in episode 4. And so hopefully you guys like my little rundown of episode 3, and I'll see you next time.